Welcome to the White Knuckling It podcast with Justin Burke.
No, we got out of the life with the pre-roll.
And Mitchell O'Brien.
It's in his butt.
They share their experiences from white knuckling sobriety to becoming successful and living life in recovery.
Yeah, boy.
Welcome back to the White Knuckling It podcast. I'm Justin Burke.
And I'm Mitchell O'Brien.
What's up, dude?
Dude, we had an interesting morning.
Yeah, we have so far. I thought I lost my SD card. That goes into the board so we can do these.
Gotta be getting backup, bro.
Well, you know, it just so happens to be I sat it down and walked away because I had other things to do.
Oh, no. What happened? Did somebody steal it?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Someone came by and snagged it. But it taught me a valuable lesson. Keep track of your shit.
Somebody snagged it. It's not lost and forgotten.
No, it's just locked it behind a door now. And someone knew we were going to podcast last night, and someone knew we might do it this morning.
Somebody knew that he had backup SD cards.
Yeah, and chose to play along with the game. Watched me run around here stressed out.
No,
for
you
like
did that
10
before.
minutes.
You did that before I got here.
I was a little stressed.
You were. I brought you donuts, though. I got donuts.
No, oh, is that why you brought me donuts to sweeten me back
No,
up?
I wanted a donut. So I was like, I got to bring one for Justin, too. And then I was like, and then the back of my mind, I was like, I don't know if he found his SD card yet. So we can, you need something to lighten the mood.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. But anyways, I wanted to talk to you about something today
Yes.
because I think it would relate really well with addiction.
Yeah.
You told me about this movie, Nefarious.
Yep.
Did I say that right?
I think it's close. Like, it's spelt nefarious. I think they say nefarious, but it's whatever.
Yeah. But anyways, it was a really good movie. Like you told me, it kind of takes place in one room.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just back and forth with like a psychiatrist for like, I'd say a good 80% of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I started thinking about it like after I watched it, like that so relates to addiction because we're like two different people.
Yeah.
You know, when we're sober, we're a different person. And when we're using, we're a totally another person.
Mm-hmm.
And so that really got me thinking about how well that movie dictated that, you know, with talking to a psychiatrist. Because when we're out using, we could have mood changes on the spot. Like, we go from Jekyll and Hyde really quick.
Oh, yeah.
And that just really put me back into, like, when I used to use meth. Because one minute I'd be cool, next minute I'm flipping out. I'm back to being cool. And it was like, wow, you know, it really hit close to home. And the moral of the movie was there was this guy on death row who supposedly was possessed by a demon. We say in recovery that I fight demons because that's how we compare our addiction to, is like fighting a demon. And I just thought that was really interesting.
I think he mentions addiction at one point because he talks about how demons can become attached in the movie. And I'm pretty sure that he lists addictions as one of them. But it is a really good movie. I heard in a different podcast an interview with the producers because I had seen this movie come up on my Amazon Prime or something before. And I don't do horror films unless I have to, forced into it sometimes. And so the kind of the thumbnail looks horror film like.
Yeah, the thumbnail totally does not depict the movie at all.
Dick pic?
Whatever, dude.
I tried not to say something the first time. Anyway, so yes, the movie, and so I heard the producer, and I was like, oh, so it's not like a gory horror. It's more of like a spiritual drama.
Yeah.
And so I decided to give it a shot, and I was like, I like this, and more because of the premise of the other podcasts that I do. But I just thought that it was so. It pertained to so many different things across life, the things that they talk about. And I've seen, like you said, this dual personality thing that we have as addicts. And I think that it's worth saying because people have this idea that weed just isn't going to do to you what other drugs do.
Yeah.
But I've personally seen people who flip this personality switch who are just straight dickheads
Yeah, when they don't got it.
when they don't got it.
I used to be like that.
Yeah, and that's the weed that everybody's like, oh no, it's natural. Oh no, it ain't gonna do that to me.
Yeah, my father used to tell me, he's like, you need to go get a bag and just get stoned.
Yeah,
He goes, you're a fucking asshole when you ain't got it.
yeah, and that's
And I'm like,
for
whatever,
real.
dude.
And then I was the same way with alcohol.
Right.
Well-
And we coddle it and baby it, you know. But one thing that I really liked in the movie, though, too, is when the psychiatrist, in the beginning of the movie, when he tells them that, well, I'm a demon and all this stuff, and he's like, okay, well, I think we need to have a priest come in and talk to you. Mm-hmm. And a priest comes in and talks to him, and he rejects him. Mm-hmm. Like something fierce.
Oh yeah, he's pissed that he's there.
Yeah.
He's like, no, go away.
And that's like us in active use. We're scared of believing in something that's better for us than what it is. And then at one point in time, too, he asked the psychiatrist to take the demon,
Yeah,
you know, and I've seen that done in real life with addiction, you know. You're sitting there using around somebody, and the next thing you know, you're like, well, do you want some of this? Mm-hmm. And then they're like, no, no, no. And then the time finally comes, and they finally accept it. And that's kind of what happened at the end of the movie, you know, when Homeboy was on death row, and he got electrocuted twice.
yeah,
You know, horrible death.
yeah,
The demon went to the other dude, the psych. And then he tries killing himself 3 times because he couldn't deal with it because it was so intense.
yep,
And we'll do that with addiction, you know, and we could sit there and play around with the demon all day long like it dictated. Ugh, there we go again. But whatever. In the movie, how it showed how you could sit there and play with something, but when it actually grabs a hold of you, all you want to do is die.
yeah.
And that's really what it's all about in addiction, because you get to that point where all you want to do is die.
And I relate to that pretty well because I struggled with drinking, alcoholism, for a really long time. But it was the last few years that really pushed me to the suicidal ideation
Yeah.
and destroy. Like, my life was destroyed physically, emotionally, relationally. Yeah. So
All of it.
all of it, spiritually, everything.
Yeah.
It was just destroyed. Like, I had a little bit of something before then, and I was just struggling with this like growing alcohol problem. But by the end there, it's like I wanted out. I had to get better, or I was going to die, either by my choice or not.
Yep.
You could say that it was still my choice no matter what, but my health had deteriorated. Like, I had to do serious work not to keep on that slow slope to the grave.
Yep.
You know?
In one part of the movie I thought was really funny is when the demon told him that he would commit 3 murders that day.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa. Like, how are you foreseeing all of this, you know? And then he goes, well, how do you know this and this and this? And he was just like, because I am who I say I am. Mm-hmm. I could go to multiple hosts, and I've been following you for a very long time. Mm-hmm. And, like, they go toss his cell before he gets executed, and they find this whole, like, little journal all about the psychiatrist, all the way down to baby pictures. Like,
Yeah.
he's been locked up. Like, how do you get these pictures of this dude?
The psychiatrist, James, was looking at it, and he goes, there's stuff in here that I don't know about me.
Right.
You know, like details about his life from when he was younger and stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then the ward, I think it's the warden. I'm not sure. He's like, this is what this guy does with all his victims, and he goes, Because the reason he's there is to decide if he's
Competent.
insane and should be treated, or he's just a criminal and needs to be put on death row.
Right.
And the warden's kind of like, if you let him go, he's going to be out eventually and you'll be next.
Yeah.
Like, this is what he did to every one of his victims. And like, they were all about team execution.
Yep.
And then it was interesting because then James, the psychiatrist, had this like inner battle with starting to believe him or not, or believe him or not. And like, he had to decide there, what am I going to do?
Yeah, and at one point, the warden went up to him. I think they're outside smoking, and he was like, he really got in your head. I could tell you're sitting out here shaking. You want a cigarette?
Yeah.
He goes, I only buy a pack every time we do an execution just to cool the nerves.
And he goes, either they all get smoked or I throw them away at the end of the day. That's the
Yep.
deal.
And he's like, well, have you ever had to throw them away? He's like, no. And I'm like, dang.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure in that situation, you know, like, that warden's got to feel bad, like, that he carries out numerous executions, because I believe they're in the state of Oklahoma,
Yeah.
where they do the death penalty, as the movie showed. So it would be interesting, you know, and I got sitting there talking about it too last night, and, you know, if people are serving life in prison for murder, why are we even keeping them alive at that point? And it's a very touchy subject with some people, but prisoners have better health care than most people in the streets. And so we're paying all their medical for their whole life, housing them, feeding them. Like, we don't even do this for our own homeless population, you know?
Right.
They may get a little bitty bridge card, but if you're homeless, you can't prepare a decent meal. I'm not saying prison meals are all that great, but at least it's a hot meal prepared for you.
And a couple different food groups in there. Like, when you're out there, you'd be lucky if you get something that'll heat some, stuff up. Because the place that most of the unhoused people in Traverse City, where they live, is they're not supposed to be having fires or anything like that.
Right.
So how do you prepare food?
Exactly.
Yeah, cold can of beans, can of tuna or something like that.
Yep.
Like, that, you got a point in the prisons. I don't know where I want to even think about speculating on what we should do with that, because I'm just not educated enough. Like, you know more about it than I do, and it is a trigger subject for a lot of people. But you have a point. These people are getting better meals, and even if they're garbage, they're still better meals. And the healthcare, I know the healthcare is garbage, but go talk to somebody, in the homeless encampment here in town.
Yeah.
There isn't healthcare.
No.
Some of them, but for the most part, a lot of them don't even have it, and it's like it's that world that we live in. It's life's not fair, and it's like, well, no, it's not. But so
I just find it very sad that we have all these prisons around our state. Half of them have been shut down over the past 15 years. I would say, like, why don't we open those up and create a community for people that aren't housed?
or addiction centers.
Right.
We're
mental health centers. Because we sure don't have enough mental health centers around this state.
No.
Like, we really don't.
Well,
like, our little mental health segment of our hospital wing houses, 10 people?
I'm not sure. I think it's more than that, but not much. We dealt with the other day, there's a lot of people in this state, and I'm sure it's different elsewhere, because I don't think Michigan is the worst when it comes to treatment for mental or addiction. I really don't think it's the worst. I think there are worse out there. I don't think it's the best, but I also don't think it's the worst. Dealing with somebody who needed psychological services.
Yeah.
You have dealt with this recently, and it's like people don't want to deal with this person anymore. So it's like, okay, well, he uses meth or drinks, or I don't know their story. But so there's substances involved. Just send them to a treatment center.
Yep.
It's like, okay, cool. But what if the serious issue here is a mental health issue, which I think anybody with addiction has that. But like some people, it's much more serious, and they need a higher level of mental health treatment. And you're just gonna throw them off on a substance use disorder treatment center, and that's not gonna help.
Yeah, I did a ride for a client like that, like 3 weeks ago, and it was very discouraging that the organization that sent her there knew her past and everything. I'm like, why would they do that to her? Like, that ain't even a good fit for that client, And it was just heartbreaking. It was sad. It really was.
Yeah. So we got to get better at that. And it's just like people just don't want to deal with it. And that's why people get, through the cracks. And it sucks when, the peer recovery coaches that are giving people rides are the ones that are seeing it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when I dealt with a client that had used before I picked them up and were unresponsive, and the emergency services came. They had been dealing with this person for, I think one of them said, multiple decades.
Yeah.
And they just blew him off.
Yep.
Like, oh, whatever. That's just so-and-so. And I'm like, okay, well, we need to see how intoxicated this person is. And they do that, and then they find the levels, and they're like, well, that's pretty good for this person. They're usually
way higher.
Way higher than that.
And his level was still scary to a normal person.
Yeah.
And that's why I brought up that movie, because normal people don't understand addiction well enough to realize that you are fighting a demon within yourself. And it's crazy that people that don't understand addiction really just don't give you the time of day to try to help you cope with your problems.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that was said in there, the demon talking through the guy's name was Edward.
Yep.
But he said when he was asking him, when the psychiatrist was asking him how possession works, it's not just a real quick jump into a body. He's like, no, it don't work that way. It's a series of yeses, is what he said.
Yeah.
You need to get a series of yeses. And then it like goes through stages. And then eventually a full possession is possible. And that's how addiction works, like almost exactly. You have a series of yeses. Hey, do you want, right? For me, it was, we're going to drink some beers tonight. Do you want one? Yeah, sure. Yes, number one. And then after that, it was just a series of yeses until it got bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's exactly what he said. He's like, it's a yes. And then it goes to the next level. Yes. Next level. Yes. Next level. Yes. And my whole substance use disorder, until I got into recovery thing was that higher level progression.
Yeah.
It started with this one little yes, and it was like bigger.
Well, it started just for one night, and you may take a couple day break, and your buddy calls you again.
Yeah.
Or any friend, calls you again and be like, oh, you want to hang out tonight, have a few brews, maybe get a little stoned? Yes. Yeah. And then it just goes into an everyday thing because you guys are used to hanging out. That's what you guys do together. So it becomes daily. And then finally, for me, it would be like the final yes would be like you wake up in the morning having to have it before you even function for the rest of the day.
Well, and that's what I was just going to say is it starts to not be another person that you're saying yes to. It starts to be the cravings in your own head.
Yep.
Where it's like, you start to get these feelings. You're stressed out, and you start to get these feelings that you need it. And then you decide, yes, because that's what I would struggle with towards the end was, I knew I shouldn't be doing it. I knew it was killing me. I knew I was going to disappoint my loved ones at the time. But then it was just like, you need this in my head. And eventually I would break down and give a yes.
Yep.
To the point of where it progressed to that little voice in the head, which isn't really a voice. It's just like thoughts. But, that little voice in your head that's saying, you're a piece of shit. You've destroyed your whole life. Look at what you've done.
Yeah.
Look at what the shambles around you. And it's like, you should end it.
Yeah.
And it was like looking for that yes.
Yep.
And I tried to give it to him once. You know, I did. Well, twice actually.
I've tried a few different times. And I just couldn't bring myself to it because I was raised that only the weak commit suicide.
Well, and I'd heard that, but I convinced myself I was weak. Like, I can't do anything. You know, I had zero self-worth and just the weakest I'd ever felt ever. Physically, emotionally, everything. All the things. And so that series of yeses through addiction had literally gotten to the point to where it was life now.
Yeah.
And I think my higher power daily, I had to think about that, but it's daily, that my attempts failed. So.
Yeah. I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
Because there was times, you know, like Shinedown's got the song 45, you know, and it became to a point where that's where I was at in my addiction because I didn't feel loved by anybody, even though I was.
Yeah.
By my significant other at the time, my family, you know, but I just didn't feel it because that's where my demon took me to. You know, it takes everything away from you. And I stared down plenty of barrels of guns over my lifetime and was going to just end it all, you know, and then for some reason it's like that little angel would sit on my shoulder and be like, are you really going to make your loved ones clean up this mess that you create?
Yeah.
Afterwards? And then they'd give me like a visual of what it would really look like. And I was just like, wow, I don't want that. Like, that's disturbing.
Mm-hmm. That's one reason I never turned to that. And the last time I dealt with suicidal ideation, I almost did. And that's when I knew like something had to change. I had a close friend do that after we kind of became early adults and split up, you know, like kind of grew apart. And then I had a neighbor that had been there my entire life do that on their front porch. And I was driving by home from work one day and they were cleaning up.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I can't do that. And then the last time that I contemplated it, I didn't attempt this time because I had gotten into recovery and I was working on my mental health. But I felt myself getting there and life was getting stressful and I was in a really bad place with my significant other. It was right when that was all falling apart. And I had been through it enough times where I knew that they talk about, well, have you made a plan yet? Like every time you talk to somebody about suicidal ideation, they say, did you make a plan yet?
Yeah.
And I never thought about that. It was always a question that was given to me. But this time I realized that these thoughts were going through my head where I was like, I have a firearm at home. I could go to the woods where it wouldn't be a mess. And, you know, the rain would clean it up or something dumb.
Right.
You know, I could, and then it took me a second. I was like, what am I doing? Like, I've got a little bit of healing under my belt. Like, this is some BS. So then I checked myself into the, you know, emergency room to be,
right,
you know, looked at. But, you know, it's a progression. It really is. And it's a serious problem.
Yep.
So, what are we going to call this episode?
Nefarious.
I don't know. It might be trademarked.
Dealing with demons.
That might be a good one. I like it.
Because it's what addiction's all about, is learning how to deal with demons and keeping them at bay. And that's why they tell you it's a spiritual program, not religious, but spiritual.
Yep.
Because you have to find that good in something to be able to survive your demons.
And to put it above everything else.
Yep.
Yep. And that's where you look when things get tough.
Yeah. Well, this is shorter than normal, but I feel like we did a really good job.
I like it. This was
we
a
gave
good
our
talk.
listeners a bunch of information to think about real fast, real quick.
Yep. I like that.
Yeah, me too.
So we're going to get on the grind and do our pure cover coach stuff today.
Yep. So later.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the White Knuckling It podcast. For more details on the show and for more episodes, log on to whiteknucklingit.com.